guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you can see a video upgrade because I did buy myself a new camera and I'm so excited. Also, the other day I put a question box up on my Instagram and I got so many questions about my move to Copenhagen. How is it working here? How did I make friends? How did I find my apartment? What do I like? What do I recommend? And so on. So I thought that it would be helpful to turn this video into a breakdown of all of your questions in different chapters about things that I think you should know and really help me about moving to Denmark. If you're also thinking about doing the same. Feel free to make yourself a coffee or a tea because this is gonna be a rather long one. So just sit back and be comfortable, get your notes out or whatever you need to do. I moved to Copenhagen with zero expectations, and the reason why I moved is because I was finishing my studies. Something that I also got asked is what I studied, and I studied international business and marketing in a university in Barcelona called SDUPF. And on my last year, I did a study abroad to Sweden and I really liked it. I even came to Copenhagen and visited, and one of my friends was living here and she told me how much she liked it, how happy she was. So I decided, why not give it a try? I know that I'm not gonna want to stay in Barcelona after I finish my studies. So that's when I started to look for apartments and jobs. It was a hard one, but then the apartment came first, and then after I got the job, actually the day that I landed to Copenhagen, so I ended up moving, and now we're like 3 days away from my 2-year anniversary in Copenhagen, and I've been here ever since. Also, as a backstory, I'm half Spanish, half Norwegian, so I grew up in Barcelona, but I also have some Nordic side in me, and also probably why I also was drawn into the culture and the way of living in Copenhagen. I literally moved with zero expectations, and my first impression about Copenhagen is that it is a very clean city. People don't really throw things on the street and they make sure that it goes in the trash. Also, people dress so nicely. Like, the amount of times that you will be humbled by these people is crazy. Everyone is also like so pretty, so tall, blonde, that it even seems like you're living in a perfect world, and that can be a bit intimidating sometimes. I was also drawn into the amount of expats that were living in Copenhagen. There's people from so many different nationalities and places that you will not feel like it's gonna be hard to mix in into the culture, because it is already so multicultural. However, it feels quite homogenic because people here tend to have a similar look, which is the standard Dane, but I feel like with all the expats, it creates like a pretty interesting mix and dynamics that I really liked. Danes also really know how to live because as soon as the sun is out, everyone is out with a beer in hand, enjoying. Doesn't matter if it's cold, people just throw blankets on them and just have this easy and like slow-paced life that I sort of like, and that's also what made me stay longer because I'm not so drawn into chaos and being on the go all the time, stress about work. They take it different here. Everyone relax, takes a step back, and you do what you need to do. And something that I also really like is that companies really value your private life, and the work-life balance is something else that we're gonna talk about later. I was also really surprised about the amount of people that bike in the city. I'm from Barcelona, we have bikes there, but it is not like Copenhagen. I also love how much people bike to get around everywhere. It feels almost that there's more bikes than cars, and if you're a pedestrian, you don't have a saying because as soon as someone is on the bike, it's like they dictate all the rules. After giving you all the reasons why you should move, you might be wondering, okay, but how do I find an apartment? And I'm gonna give you a breakdown of different websites and methods and ways of securing an apartment because it is not the easiest, but it can definitely be done. First, you need to decide if you're gonna look into a room or an apartment because that is gonna be a different story. Finding a room is definitely much easier than finding an apartment as a whole. I would also suggest starting with a room, and once you're established and you make your network of people, it might be easier to transition into an apartment. Also, if you're moving alone and you don't have friends, you might already know someone which might be your roommate, so I feel like that's also a better way of starting, unless of course you're moving in with your couple. I would say there's 2 ways of finding rooms. One is on Facebook and the other one is looking through websites. Facebook is definitely the conventional way where people usually find their rooms, since you just post about it on a group chat and then you will see the apartment listing, and then you will most likely get in touch with the person renting the apartment to go for a viewing. However, I would also suggest making a post yourself in those groups. I'm gonna leave like either screenshots or the names of those groups here so you can see them. But what I did back in the day was making a post about myself saying that I was looking for a room or an apartment, a bit of the areas where I wanted it to be and my budget and about myself. And you will most likely get contacted like that as well, because it is easier as a tenant to pick and choose rather than having a bunch of people messaging you about them being interested in a room. That way they can save a lot of work. So if you don't post about it, you're gonna go unnoticed most likely, and the chances that you get more opportunities are lower. Also consider that the apartment that you're gonna be renting from, it's gonna be either privately owned or from an agency. The one that I'm staying that I found is owned by a particular, so it makes things easier and move faster with less restrictions or policies, so to say. However, agencies have a more established procedure that you have to follow and go through. In my case, I didn't find my room on Facebook. I just saw my watch 10 line. That's when you know she's a runner. I didn't find my room on Facebook. I found it through a website called Hemavi. And back in the day, you had like 3 free tries where you could send messages to people that had listed their room. And I was lucky enough to get an answer from one of the apartments, which is the room that I'm staying in. Lots and lots of rooms are rented unfurnished, which was the case of mine. I bought my bed, the mirror, like any shelves that you see, it's all things that I bought. So also be aware that when you're looking into moving, you're gonna take into account the costs of basically furnishing your room. I eventually got the room, and what I did was bring my friend to qualify the apartment. That's very helpful if you know someone, because there's a lot of scammers out there, so please be aware of those. And once I qualified it, I had a call with one of my roommates, and we just made sure that we're a match and we're aligned. And once she gave me the go, I got in touch with the landlord, who is the owner of the apartment, and I had to sign. Basically, what was needed from my end was to put down the 3-month deposit to secure the apartment. So make sure that you also take into account those costs. And some apartments might even require the first month of rent and the last one, so 5 months of rent. In my case, I have 3 months in rent as deposit. Currently what I'm paying is 6,500 crowns, which is, I would say, in the middle range of apartments in Copenhagen. You're lucky if you get something for 5,000, but it can also go up to 9 or 10,000, specifically if you're looking for studios or young people owned apartments. Another very popular website that it is not free of charge is Bolig Portal, and there's quite a few that are similar to this one, where people list apartments or rooms, and you are able to meet up with the landlord and then do a viewing of the apartment, and if you're chosen, then you will eventually get the place. I believe that you have to pay 60 euros for 2 months, if I'm not wrong, which is an added cost, but I highly recommend doing that if you're specifically looking to move into an apartment. Because the apartments that I've seen on Facebook have flown by. Those get taken so fast, and it is very, very competitive, and the chances that you get those are very low. There's also lots of studios in Copenhagen that range from 8 up to like 11 to 12,000, although you can get some money back from the government. I think it's called Boligstøtte. I'm gonna leave it here so that I don't miss it. And you would basically get like a 1,000 crown discount, which is not bad if you wanna live in your own space, which usually is a studio of from 33 to like up to like 38 square meters, which is quite small. But if you value your own privacy and you want to live on your own, I definitely think that it is a great option. And for that, I would suggest googling studios in Copenhagen and see what comes up. I know that they have some in Søhavn and also in Nørrebro and Østerbro, most likely like all over the place. I believe that every neighborhood has some studios. If you're coming to Copenhagen because you're a student and you're not a worker, it might also be easier for you because you're gonna be able to access to student housing or accommodation. A very popular one is Basecamp, and I know that they have 3 different locations. You can only apply to live in those if you're a student. I have some friends that live in those and they are very, very happy. Now, I've briefly talked about apartments and rooms, but what about areas? And that is also something to consider. There's some main areas that are Osterro, which is where I'm currently living. I love this neighborhood. It's quite residential, but there's lots of stores, so many supermarkets around me. I have the metro right next to me, so I really, really like it. And it is also connected to Norrhavn, which is where people go and bathe, and there's some run clubs that start there, so it is very convenient for me. The apartment buildings are super new and in very good state. And there's also a residency for students there in Norrhavn, so you could also look into those. Then you also have Norrbro, which is the more alternative neighborhood, I would say. It is very well connected, and if you're close to the lakes, you found a gem. Really, really like it. You also have Västerbro, which is a neighborhood that I would also move into because I love the area. There's so many shops, cafes, like the options are endless. And then you also have Fredriksberg, which is the more posh and residential neighborhood of Copenhagen. It's very close to the Fredriksberg's Have, which is a very beautiful park. So that's also a very nice area. Those are going to be the most expensive ones, and also Indreby, of course, it's like the center of Copenhagen. But if you want something cheaper, then I would highly suggest looking into Amma, which is where a lot of my friends live. It's further down, closer to the airport, but you have the beach, which is super, super nice. And then you can also look into Valvo. I know that there are some studios there, and also even Carlsberg, which I don't know much about, but it is also a nice area. And also Northwest is a very popular area now where lots of cafes and establishments are also getting settled there. Also, I would say it's a very good place to look for an apartment if you want to move in with your partner or you want to live on your own, since costs are going to be cheaper and there's not going to be that much competition with lots of offers. Something that I also recommend is looking for an apartment before you look for a job, because once you make it to Copenhagen, if you don't have an apartment, you're gonna start spending lots of money on Airbnbs and temporary stays, and having to move your stuff around is not gonna really help you. And also, in my opinion, if I move somewhere, I wanna feel like home, and I feel like without an apartment, it is rare that you have that sense. And when you're moving, there's so many things going on, so many changes. That is like a foundation that for me was very helpful to have. Moving on to the job search, which is a huge one, and during my time in Copenhagen, I've moved over to 2 different jobs. Not because I wanted, but things unfolded this way, so I'm gonna tell you a bit more of what I was doing and also some tips that I think are gonna really help you if you wanna find a job fast. I graduated with an international business and marketing degree, as I said, so after I graduated, I had no clue what I wanted to do. I was so lost. So if you're in the business field, I was looking for business development positions and account manager, although I had no clue what that meant, but that's what I was looking because I was seeing it everywhere. There's also different platforms where you can look for jobs. The first one I would say is LinkedIn, which is the most competitive one out of all the others. For sure. If you're using that to look for jobs, something that really helped me along the way was sending a message to the HR manager, or if you see someone that works in the company, that way you already have a touch point and they know you, so that when they see your name, you're gonna be called up for an interview and they are already gonna know something about you. Also, in my eyes, this shows that you're determined and you really want a job and you're like available. There's also thehub.io. It is a website mainly for startups with lots of internships, which is something that you might consider when you're getting started. You're gonna be a no one, you don't have connections to the country, you don't even know the language. So you might have to accept that you're gonna have to start low. And I feel like that's what lots of people have done, especially depending on the industry. If you wanna be an architect or work in fashion, you're gonna have to build up your way up there, and lots of people start with internships, which is unfortunate, but it is very competitive. However, once you make it into the company, it is gonna be easier for you to escalate and get promoted to get better jobs. I had 2 interviews with the Hub in which I made it to the final round. They were good jobs, I just didn't feel like it was for me, so it is definitely possible. Also to find companies that are willing to pay you more than just an internship or an entry position level. Also, again, something that I would always do is send messages privately to employees that were working in that company or anyone that I could find. You also have Job Index. I believe is the biggest employment platform here in the Nordics. There's many jobs that are not posted on LinkedIn that are posted there. And be aware that they might be posted in Danish, but you're able to translate it. And I would always encourage you to apply. Although it is in Danish and they might require it, you don't really know what is it required for. So don't be shy, send your CV, send that application. My first interviews were with a company that required Danish, and I made it to the last round, although I didn't get hired because someone had more experience than myself. But this proves the point that it is possible. Lastly, which is my favorite, it might require patience, is unsolicited applications. Those are gold for me because you are sending your CV to a company with your skills and so on, your cover letter, anything that you might have that might help you to get that position. And they're basically gonna reach back to you once they have an opening that they see that suits your skills. So it's sort of like putting in the work for then passively getting it back. And that's actually how I got my first job in Copenhagen. I was reaching out to so many different companies here. You can look for companies established in Copenhagen or headquartered, and just send those unsolicited applications. And don't be shy to send as many unsolicited applications as you can. I believe I sent my first one in April, and 2.5 months later, because I was traveling and I was not really actively looking, I got an email back from this company where I used to work for saying if I was still interested in working for them. And I was like, yeah, I don't have a job. I would love to hear back from you. So, and it was the end of July by this point. So some time had gone by and I had this first call with the CEO of the company. It was a very small startup. We had the call, it went very well. And then 1 week later, I had another call with another person in the company. And I was waiting to hear back from them. And I was already coming to Copenhagen. So I remember it was Wednesday, the day that I had to hear back from them and that my plane was taking off. But as soon as I landed, I opened up my email and I saw an email saying, "You are hired, congrats." And that was such a blessing. I felt like it was meant to be and it ended up working out. And if it wasn't because I sent that email, I would have never got that job. So that this goes to show that it definitely works. Timing is so important, but you will eventually get opportunities like this one that might surprise you for good. Now, am I still working for them? No, I don't. Things happened that led me to be let go from the company. And something that is worth mentioning is that if you're an employee of a company, you get 3 months notice. So they told me that I was being let go, and based on my contract I had 3 months that everyone gets, that work but look for jobs on the side. And in my contract I had an additional month since it was such a small company and I had so much on my plate that they would need some extra time to find someone else. I ended up being replaced and that led me to have 4 months notice, although I found my new job 1 week after I was told about this, so things moved super fast. I also want to share how I found this second job, which was also through outreach. I sent a small text on LinkedIn to this influencer marketing platform that I was working for, and I got called in for an interview. It went very well. I ended up having like a 4-hour talk with the CEO as well. So they really liked my background and I got to see the office and different employees from the company, and things moved super quick. So I ended up getting hired for that company, which I had been working for a year and like 2 months, I would say. But again, unfortunately, I also had to be let go due to reasons that I'm not really able to talk about, which means that I am back in the market, which is a bit unfortunate since I've been in this situation since last year. Although you say that there's always movement and positions, so I would say that the unemployment rate in Copenhagen is quite low. There's always opportunities. However, now which is summertime, it has been quite complicated. I also have 4 months notice, which ends in end of August. So the clock is definitely ticking, although I've been doing some interviews and have things open in the pipeline, and I'm pretty confident that I'm gonna get my next job very soon. The key takeaways I would say from the job search is to please do as much outreach to companies as you can. Try to stand out, prove your skills, and mention those on a cover letter. If you know someone that works in a company, mention them, and always try to express what you can bring to that company because competition is very high. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. But if you try to express what you can bring to the table and what you can do and your timeline, they're most likely going to be open for a talk. Companies are always open for a talk, so it is up to you to enlighten them in a good way so that they can hire you. And also remember that you might want to start pretty low in position and then move your way up. And also if you're a student, you might have some advantage here, since as a student, you get what it's called SU, which is money from the government for studying, if you're working at least 10 hours a week, which is very attainable and something that lots of people do. It is also going to be easier for you to find a job because there's so many student positions since they have to pay you less. And knowing the market nowadays, seeing how everyone and all the industries are struggling, you might find a job even quicker if you're studying than if you want to work full-time. So if you're considering doing a master's, definitely an amazing way to get a job as well, because you're going to start as a student assistant and then you're already going to be in the company to move your way up while having studies on the side, which is better to go through it as a student than as a full-time worker. Another tip and something that I want to share is not to panic if you cannot find a job related to your field. There's so many people that go through it and that they have to end up working at cafes in the meantime, and it is still okay and acceptable. Also with this job, it's not going to be very mentally requiring, so you're going to have time after work to look for those jobs that are related to your field, but you know that you're going to have some money that is coming in every single month. I can only speak about the business field because it's the one that I'm in, but if you're looking for jobs that are related to marketing or communication, I would suggest leaving those aside and start with a business development position, because every company needs BDRs and they're going to be needed. There's going to be openings and positions, so if you have the skills, you're most likely going to get the job. It might not be a dream position, but that's something that I was doing at my former job and I really liked it. If you have a good culture, good colleagues, good perks, flexibility, you are going to be happy and you're going to end up learning the skills that will make you even better at your job, and then you can escalate from there. So please, if you're struggling, do yourself a favor and look for BDR positions, because also for those marketing and communication related positions, lots of them require a Nordic language, and even myself, I know some Norwegian, maybe not to work with, but it is not enough, and they're gonna pick someone who's Danish over someone that is not, which is just the reality and pure facts. Good luck if you're looking for a job. I believe in you, you're gonna do great, and if you have any other questions, my DMs are always open, so if you want more tailored tips, please feel free to reach out and I'm gonna do my best, although I'm not an expert, but I've had my fair share of interviews. Now, what about friends, which is an essential part of why you would want to move? You want to make new friends, establish a community in a new place, and also to have people to spend time with. So I'm going to first share how I made my friends and still making them, and some tips that I would advise and that I did when I first moved to Copenhagen without knowing anyone. I met my best friend through Facebook, yes. I basically made a post on a group called Free Your Stuff Copenhagen, which is great if you want to have free things for your room. I think like that shelf was for free, for example. People basically give away their things when they move out, since I mentioned that rooms come unfurnished. So people just give those out, or the deal is that you go and pick those up so that they don't have to do the work to disassemble everything. So I made this post about me looking for like carpet or bed, linen, towels, anything. And this girl texted me saying, "Hi, I'm new to the city. I don't have anything to offer you, but if you want, we can meet up." And that was the 10th of August, which is when I moved. So she had also moved, so we already had something in common. But we were both starting our jobs the 1st of September, so we had plenty of time to get to know each other, which is what we did. We explored the city, went to so many tanning spots and cafes, restaurants. You can imagine parties, everything that you can imagine. Also, when you move to Copenhagen, you have to go to the international house to get your CPR number, which is the number that identifies you as a citizen. And Alex was having problems with the computer, but this girl helped her. But eventually they parted ways because they went in and it was their turn. However, when Alex came out, Gina, which is this girl that helped her, was waiting for her. She proposed to go have a coffee because she didn't have friends. And they ended up bonding over a cup of coffee. And then Alex came to me and said, I met this girl, Gina, who I think you would really like. And that's how I met her, and now she's one of my best friends, as well as Gina's roommate, Francesca. So we all get along very well, and this just goes to show that you can make friends anywhere in Copenhagen. Just please be as open as you can, because you don't know where you might meet your bestie. Something that I was also on and I met some people through is Bumble BFF, which is like the dating app, but dating friends or trying to make friends. You fill in your interest and whatnot, and then you can go on dates with these girls and try to see who you bond with and so on. That's something that I used way in the beginning, but it is a great tool if you don't know anyone. You know that at least you will match with people that have similar interests to you. It can be a bit draining though, since you have to explain yourself and your story all over again, but that's like going on dates. It is the same thing, different story. With some people you will match and some others you won't. Another group that I really like, although I never attended any event or activity, is Women in their 20s and 30s in Copenhagen, I believe it's called. And you can make a post with your interest and what you like or what you want to do or what you're looking for. Just introduce yourself and you will get so many messages from girls that also moved to Copenhagen. And it is a great way to do things in a social setting or in a group, since most likely other people will also add on to anything that you might propose. Let's say that you want to go sunbathing, then you can propose it on that group and then you're gonna get messages. So it is so easy and so nice in my opinion. If you have any specific hobbies or activities that you like to do, I would suggest looking into a club or a team. Let's say that you like basketball, then you find a basketball team, or you like knitting, then I'm pretty sure that you go on Facebook and put like knitting group in Copenhagen and you would most likely find one. And also if you like running, there's a bunch of running clubs in Copenhagen. Here I would maybe like to talk a bit about my run club, which is Urban Gazelles. It is amazing, and a community that I created through social media from girls that were contacting me about running together when I started showing my fitness side of things. And I started it in January and we do monthly runs. I love the girls so much. It is so international. People from all over the place that came here to do so many different things. Some are new to the city. Some others might have been living here for like 10 years. But it is an amazing way to meet people that also like to run or have an active lifestyle, because we also do other activities such as yoga. And all the girls keep coming back. So many new ones, and it is amazing. I'm gonna leave you the Instagram if you wanna check it out, give me a follow, and stay tuned for next events because there's lots coming. That's also how I've made so many new friends, is through my run club. The girls that I run with are now my friends, and I hang out with so many of them on a personal level. It is something that I would have never expected. And I also love that the pace is very slow. I set it quite slow at like 6:30 pace, more or less, even slower sometimes, so that we can talk and you're comfortable. And it is also for women only, so that you know that you will make genuine friends. After the runs, we also have coffees and snacks and so on, so it is very nice to have this community of girls that is so international and everyone is so open, so definitely check it out. I noticed that many of the run clubs were for Danes only, and it was hard to make friends, although the more that you go to, let's say, my run club or these run clubs, you end up meeting people that are gonna be in these other run clubs as well, so that's very cool. I used to go to the Adidas one, or the one that I first tried going alone, which was pretty nerve-wracking. And something that makes me proud is that people feel good coming to mine alone, because we're so open-minded and laid back. And if you're a bit self-conscious about going alone, feel free to text me and you're gonna already know someone. I also go to the Berlin Run Club, which is Wednesday mornings. Then you also have Say Sky that they do once a month. You also have Rafat, cycling brand, Grill, and you also have Planet Nusa. So there's like plenty out there that I suggest checking out and that are gonna pop up here and there. I've went a lot over apartments, making friends, and finding a job. But something that I really like about Copenhagen is the work-life balance that I haven't encountered elsewhere. I come from Spain, so I know that the working culture is very different there. They usually start at 8:30 to 9 and people work until 6 p.m. Even longer. I even have friends that told me that in their contracts they have working until 6 p.m. and they look at you like, are you leaving this early if you leave at 6? And that is something that never happens in Copenhagen. As long as you're doing your job, you can leave earlier. If you have an appointment or anything going on, you will not be looked at weirdly or questioned about, so they really value and respect your private life. Maybe some examples, like at my first job, I started working at 9, and also like my former one, I worked from 9 and I finished around 5. But sometimes I would finish at 4, 4:30, it depends. And then on Fridays, we would have Friday beers, which is so nice because you get to bond over a beer with your colleagues and just talk about the week or debrief and talk about weekend plans, which is super cool. Lots of workplaces also offer yoga or even gym sessions or barbecues, different events. So it is very inclusive, and there's so many activities going on that you feel like you're part of a family, and it goes beyond work. In my first job, I was literally going to CrossFit paid by the company 3 times a week. It was Monday, Wednesday, and Friday that I would go to CrossFit during work hours. And that is something unheard of, but it is Denmark and companies have amazing perks. You will also get lunch in the office, coffees, snacks, anything that you can imagine. And as a girl that trains a lot, I eat so much, so that is so convenient for me, especially because you save a lot of money. I also love how easy it is to get around the city. I take my bike everywhere with me, and it is usually from a 10 to 15 max 20-minute bike ride, which is so easy, not having to depend on a metro and saving money on the metro ticket since it is quite expensive. It is definitely a huge advantage for me, and something that also keeps you active, keeps you going, and just brightens up your day to wake up and be able to bike to work and not deal with the stress that you deal with in the metro and people rushing and being late. It's also a very, very safe city. I've walked home alone so many times and nothing has ever happened to me. Everyone is literally like minding their own business, and I wouldn't see why you would feel unsafe in this city. So that's also a huge plus. Another tip for when you're looking for apartments is to please find an apartment that is on the ground or first, second floor, because apartments in Denmark rarely have lifts, so you don't have to carry everything on your own. And also when you go out and come in, walking up those stairs like makes me so out of breath. So living on the first floor is something that is so beneficial for me. From the moment that you step foot in Copenhagen, please download Facebook, because everything goes to that app, from finding apartments to finding jobs sometimes as well, making friends, events. Facebook is a very helpful platform here in Denmark. Let's be honest, winters are so tough in Copenhagen. I would say from November until March or April is very rough. It's very dark. The sun comes up at like 9:30, I would say, and maybe leaves around 3 p.m. 3:30 sometimes, but you're not gonna get a lot of sunlight hours, and that really affected me. And depression is real here because you rarely see the sun, especially it's out when you're at work. So those hours on the weekend are gold. And also why the term hygge is so huge here in Copenhagen, because we have so many cafes and cozy places with candles and blankets, because if we didn't have that, it would be impossible to live here in the winter time. And something that I also do that really helps me is going back to Spain for at least 2 or 3 weeks in January to recharge and get some sun. So another tip is to save up your vacation days for those months. Since you are rarely going to be required to take off in August, let's say, save those up, be smart about it, and travel off season because it's going to be cheaper. You're going to get recharged and it is just going to be better for you. That's why the sun will literally control your life. Like as soon as the sun is out, everyone is out. Even companies let you be out because it's sunny sometimes, or let you leave earlier to go for a beer with your friends. And that also means that you are going to want to do your responsibilities in the winter time, because that's when you're going to have time. But in the summer, you're going to be, and you want to be out. I'm snacking on a barbell because I'm so hungry. I don't have groceries at home because I'm going to London tomorrow. I'm so excited. But another thing that I really like about Copenhagen is the schedule and the time that things are done. I'm a morning person, so for me, Going to bed early and waking up early makes me so happy and brings me joy. And that is something that I believe that is favored. Unfortunately, not everyone is a morning person, but all the run clubs are done in the morning, and getting a workout in before going to work just fills up my cup and makes me so happy. In companies, you will usually have lunch around 11:30 until 1 p.m., which is very early for some of you, and something that I also had to get myself adjusted to. But trust me, you will adjust fast, and for me now, eating lunch at 2 or 3 p.m. just sounds so late, and mind you that I am Spanish. Dinner will be normally around 6:30, 7 p.m. When I get back home from work, I start making dinner and I end up eating around 6 to 6:30 so that I can be in bed by 8, 9 p.m. and sleeping by 10:30 so that I can be up by 6 a.m. And that is going to be the same case if you go to a restaurant. If you try to get a reservation by 9, the kitchen is going to be closed, except for a very few places that are dinner/drink bars or restaurants. In another video, I can talk about my favorite restaurants and cafes because that's something that I get asked so much, and I definitely have a big list that I could go through. Since everything is done so early, it means that you can be done quite early as well and go to bed earlier. It will be the case with parties. I feel like when I was partying in Spain, it was maybe until like 5, 6 a.m. and I was in bed by 7 a.m., which is something that I'm not really keen on these days. But if I go out here, when I go out, which is not that often, I'm maybe home by 2 or 3 a.m., which makes it easier for you to recover and be up and energized the next day. We also have a lot of like day events and parties and drinking that I personally like a lot. Is the day party or like day drinking, and it makes it easier for you to not break the routine and be able to do both, if it makes sense. Autumn is coming up, so I think it's worth mentioning that the best way to dress here in Copenhagen is by layering. I usually wear some long sleeve, and then if it's very, very cold, I will wear tights under my jeans, which I believe I've done maybe once last winter. I'm a person that is quite warm and sweats quite a lot, so I do not need that. Although gloves, you are gonna really wanna need those. Gloves are gonna be so important. When you're on the bike, you're gonna freeze your fingers if you're not wearing gloves. Since I get so sweaty on the bike, I usually bring a t-shirt to change myself after. It is something that I have to do because I don't wanna be smelly and sweaty at work. To finish off, I guess answer if I'm happy, if I regret it, and the answer is no, I do not regret it, and yes, I am very happy, indeed the happiest that I've been in a long, long time. I believe that if you really want it, it is possible, and I have so many friends and known people that have really struggled to come here or make their way through job interviews and apartments, but it all happens for a reason, and if you really want it and you invest time and money or like resources into it, it can end up happening and you will not regret it. Although winters are tough, people that I speak with and encounter with have stayed for so long, and everyone ends up moving and not moving back, which is always a good sign. The people here are amazing, and if you like the hecticness, maybe this is not the place for you since it is not a very hectic place. I love the size of Copenhagen. It is not huge nor small like a town, but you still see familiar faces and people like say hi to you in the street, and that is something that I love since I'm not like a stranger. Since you don't go unnoticed and you're not a stranger, also if you start working at places, you're most likely gonna see those faces outside of work as well. The only downside I would say is that it is quite an expensive city, especially if you wanna go eat out. You might want to cook home with friends at the beginning and then go out and explore restaurants and bars, but please know that it is quite expensive. Besides that, I believe that you have so much flexibility and freedom here. We have an airport that is like so close to us. It is not like too far out the city. It's so easy to hop on a plane and go back home if you're not happy or if you're having struggles or anything that you might need. It is in your fingertips, and I always say that the worst that can happen is that you move back because things haven't worked or you're not happy. So I definitely encourage you to try it and give it a go, because I believe in you, and energy flows where focus goes. So I truly believe that it is possible. I hope this answered some of your questions. If I missed something, which I'm pretty sure, and I'm sure that I'm gonna stop recording and I'm gonna think about so many things that I forgot, please leave me a comment. send me a DM on Instagram. It is always open. I'm open to hear from you. Anything that might be going through your mind, please feel free to reach out. And I hope at least that I convince you a tiny bit. Thank you for this one, and I'll see you on the next one. Now it's time for me to go fix my nail because I don't know what I did here, and I'm traveling to London tomorrow and I need to make sure that my nails are looking as fresh as they can be. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!